Okay, cool. So in the last video, we finished up this gun here. Looks pretty good. So what we need to do now is basically block out our own unique design, because obviously this piece is solely for the proportions, and now that we have the proportions down, we can start with our own unique design. So as you progress through the course, I'd encourage you to make your own tiny adjustments here and there, just so that way you get some extra practice and you have a cool design that's unique to you. Okay, so I hopped into the side view here with 1 on the number pad, or you can just use the tilde helper here. You can just tilde and click, and then you can just do it fast like that. I just think that's easier. So now we're going to use this as reference and just start kind of blocking out our own unique design. So what I actually want to do is get rid of this little overhang here on the back, because I have my own idea for a design. So yeah, this piece where it's kind of slanting downwards, I just want to get rid of that. So we can do it a few different ways, but I think the easiest would be to, well, first we'll go into vertex mode, tab and then vertex. And then if we press the K key, we can hover over this vertex. We'll press C to constrain it, and then we'll click all the way across, click and press enter. So now if we go into face mode here, we can just delete these out like that. Looks pretty good. Now you can see that these edges are kind of redirecting downwards because of how we oriented this before, and that's a really easy fix. All I'm going to do for this is simply tab into edge mode. We'll shift select these two edges, and if you press Ctrl X, that dissolves the edges. You can also press the X key, however, and dissolve the edges that way. So yeah, and now at this point basically all we have to do is just click with the knife tool, K, C, click, and then enter. Same thing over here. K, C, click, and then enter. So that way we've just cut across basically. So now we basically have a nice flowing mesh here. Next, what I'd like to do is select these 4 edges, and we'll just grab it on the Z axis. So G and then Z, and then just pull this up a bit, and then maybe, actually I'm just going to select this edge, pull it over a little bit so that way it's, you know, somewhat even with the side here. It doesn't really have to be perfect. And you can see that just gives us a nice little design there on the back, because I already have an idea for putting something here on the bottom I think would be pretty cool. So yeah, we've done that, and you know what, let's just go ahead and hop right into the little design here on the bottom. I think it would be a good time to do it. So what I'm going to do is press Shift A, mesh, and then add in a cube. And I'm just going to put the cube somewhere over here and scale it down. You know, we don't have to really be perfect with it. That's not the goal as of right now. So I think I'll scale this on the Z, move it down ever so slightly, and then essentially just scale on the X here. So I'm just going to scale it so it's a little bit wider than the back. Maybe around here should be okay. And then I'm going to scale this on the Y axis, just so that way it's a little bit thinner. Maybe right around there. Cool, so now the next thing I'd like to do for this little back part is bevel the top edges. Now if we press the N key, you're going to notice that our scale is actually not applied, which means if I try to go in here and bevel these edges, it's not going to bevel evenly. Now it looks like it is because, I mean, these values are pretty close what we're beveling it on, the axes we're beveling on. It's a very small difference between these two. But basically, just press Ctrl A and apply the scale, and that'll just make sure our bevel here is uniform. So select these 2 edges, Ctrl B, and just give this a pretty slight bevel there. I think would be good. I'd also like to select this bottom edge and then simply just pull it back, kind of like that. Now you're going to see that this is an n-gon right here. This is an n-gon face. So the shading actually doesn't look as nice because we're kind of pulling back an n-gon. So Blender doesn't really know how to shade it nicely. You can't really tell here. But basically what we need to do is tab into vertex mode and join these 2 together so that way we can see a clear transition. So if we press the J key, that'll actually give us that nice clear transition. You can see it a lot better now. I think this looks a lot cleaner that way. So we'll leave that there for now. That's just going to be maybe a temporary design until I decide to, you know, really get in there and make it a little bit more detailed. I think that's okay. The next thing I'd like to do, I want to separate both the grip, the magazine, and this little trigger hold from this mesh here. So I'm just going to tab into face select mode and just select all these faces here by holding shift and clicking. Then I'm going to press the P key and choose by selection. So now this is basically its own piece, which we can, do whatever we want to. The main goal here is just to get this separate from this area. So I think that looks pretty decent. And now what I think I'll do is go back into the front view with the tilde key and just make a nice little design here on the back. So to do that, what we need to do is, once again, we need to make sure our extra mesh option is on. So if we go to Edit, Preferences, and then in here just type in Extra, tick on the Add Mesh Extra Objects button. That's going to be very important. I'm not sure if I mentioned that yet. But anyways, we're going to press Shift A, Mesh, and then you're going to see we have this single vert here. We're going to add a single vert. And now we can't move it, and that's because we're in face mode. Just change the vertex, and now we can move it. And I'm going to put it right here. I'm actually going to snap it right to this corner. So just make sure you're in vertex snap, grab it, hold Control, and then what I'm going to do is extrude it, hold Control to snap there, and then just extrude on the Z-axis. Something like that should be okay. Awesome. So I'm just going to pull this up maybe, I don't know, a little bit higher. And then if I select everything with the A key, I can press E and extrude back like this. So that way we have, a little bit of thickness, or 2D thickness rather, going that way. So I think that looks pretty decent. And then finally, what I think I'll do, we can always change this again later, is just select this top edge, extrude on the Z, and then select this edge and just extrude across on the X. And eventually we're going to kind of make this transition a little bit nicer, but this is just an idea for the backstock I wanted to leave, so we'll probably adjust this again later, but for now I just wanted to get that general design in there. Okay, now what I think I'll do is maybe make a slant here in the back. I think that would look cool. So I'm going to select these 4 vertices, F to fill them in, and just to make this a little bit cleaner in the transition, what I think I'll do is press the K key, select this vertex, and then cut through by pressing C, click, and then press enter. It does make a triangle here, but it's not going to really be a huge issue. We can always fix it later if it ends up becoming one. I just think this geo looks a little bit cleaner this way, so now we have that. So now, as you can see, we have this cool little slant there in the back, which I think gives a nice little aesthetic to the gun, and we can keep working on it. So for my design, I actually want the barrel to just go straight through this way. I don't really want it to, start here. So I'm just going to tab into face mode, and if we press the C key, we can just circle select all these faces here, X, and then delete those faces. So that looks good to me. And then I'm just going to select these 2 edges, extrude on the X, and I don't know, just kind of arbitrarily pull out this way. I'm just going for this type of aesthetic instead. Always messing up my words on the recording too, but okay, so now we kind of have a little bit of a better design now. And you know what? Now's a good time to actually give this some solidification. So what I actually want to do is, first of all, I'm going to select all the flat objects. So, as a matter of fact, I'll just select everything. I'm going to press 7 on the number pad to go into top view, and I'm just going to grab it on the y-axis, and I'm going to change the snap method to increment. So now if I press G and then Y and hold Control, I can snap it on these increments. I'm just going to move it 2 units over. You can see that's 2 units over. So that'll basically allow me to go in here to all these different objects and just extrude across 4 units. So 2 this way and then 2 this way, so that way it's exactly centered over this origin point. So I'm just going to tab into face mode, and we'll just select everything with the A key, go back into top view with 7 on the number pad, and then E to extrude, and we'll just hold Control. And right when it hits the X-axis, go 1 and then go 2. Right, so now this is completely centered, so if we do any sort of symmetry or mirror work, it's going to mirror perfectly, which is exactly what we're going for with this design. And we can always change it again later if we'd like. So same idea for these other pieces that are 2-dimensional. We'll just tab into face mode, or edge, it doesn't really matter, just as long as you're in edit mode. We'll select everything with the A key, go into top view, E, and then just hold Control and snap it there. And then we'll do it for this one. So select everything, top view, E, and then hold Control, get that guy right across. So yeah, that's okay for now. This one's not completely centered, but you know what, that's okay, because we have the grab tool. We can just grab it and move it a little bit so it is pretty much in the center. Okay, so the last piece I want to have centered is this one, so I guess I'll go into the back view, maybe front view, back, front, left, right, whatever. Left view it looks like, and then we'll just move that guy in the center as well. Doesn't have to be perfect, just as long as you can visually tell it's in the center, you will be more than good to go. So this looks like a very, very basic block out so far. I know this doesn't look exciting, this actually looks quite the contrary, pretty boring. But this is the foundation of the design we're making. We want to have a visual before we get into any sort of complex geometry, cutting, bevels, booleans. Before we get into any of that, we want to have this general design down. So I think we'll start here. We made some good progress so far, and this thing is definitely starting to look like a weapon. So in the next video, we'll just keep continuing on with this guy.